Happy Yoga Day. Thank you for joining the International Day of Yoga Committee at the United Nations today as we celebrate the 7th anniversary of World Yoga Day. My name is Denise Scotto, and I'm chair of the International Day of Yoga Committee at the United Nations. And you've been listening to Seeds of Peace from the award-winning performer, composer, but most of all, close friend of ours, Paul Luftenegger. Paul told us that this album was inspired by his experience in being with us at the UN for Yoga Day, for Peace Day, and so many other events with our committee and the greater UN community. I'd like to just give a special thanks because Paul is also joining us physically today, too. I see him here. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you personally from the bottom of my heart, too, Paul. It means so much that you're joining us with your special music and also that you're saying hello to us, too, with your beautiful heart and presence today. We're also so delighted to collaborate with Unity Earth because it's Unity Earth's World Unity Week, and all our colleagues and friends who are joining together to make this a really special week where we can co-create greater understanding, connection, and peace. Today is also Juneteenth in the United States. And what that means is this date signified the emancipation of the slaves, the freedom of the slaves. Think about that, human freedom, human dignity, and justice. Think about how this fits in perfectly with yoga, which, as most of us know, is union, connection, going beyond our differences to our very oneness, to our one humanity, to a world that fits and serves each and every one of us, wherever we may be. Again, a very warm welcome to those of you who are joining us as we celebrate World Yoga Day. I see many of our friends, many of our board members, Jean Trudel, Bob Perry, Dennis Lykoul, many of our other friends are with us. Ambassador Chibala, I see a few other members of the diplomatic corps, but I'd like to start with the program now as we begin, because today we'd like to focus on the topic at hand. When we talk about yoga, one of our slogans really is how it's about healing. Yoga, healing, health, and harmony. And as many of you know, health is an important part of the UN 2030 development agenda. And it's known as Sustainable Development Goal, or SDG number 3. The World Health Organization explains how health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And it's not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a profound impact on the mental health of people of all ages. We know that COVID-19 has had serious effects on the physical body, but social distancing and the isolation of lockdown that so many of us around the world have experienced, watching family and friends being affected and having some loved ones pass without being able to say goodbye, to be there physically with them, or the economic and the financial strain, the coping with unemployment, changing in work, in different work conditions from the office to home, dealing with homeschooling of youngsters and their particular situation too. They're no longer in a classroom with their peers. They need attention. Some of them are very bored or depressed. These are just a few circumstances that can lead to mental and emotional stress. It can lead to panic, to anxiety, to fear, to grief and worry of all kinds. For others, it's precipitated a spiritual crisis, with many people asking themselves basic questions that they've avoided, and it's just come to the surface now. What is the meaning of life? What's my value? What is my particular purpose? And how am I contributing to society? There are so many questions that one is asking about the mystery of what it means to exist. On top of this, safe spaces such as yoga studios and ashrams, as well as different houses of worship, were all closed. And this didn't provide an important resource. It did not provide a trusted, supported community that so many were accustomed to and relied upon. But also, the New York Times reported that gun and other violence surged in certain neighborhoods, especially in New York City in 2020, and that this was a trend in many big US cities due to the economic and the social implications from COVID-19. So it can be viewed as a very polarizing time and one of deep distress, where we're all experiencing and witnessing so much, including racial injustice, particularly Asian hate crimes here in the US, and increased killings of Black members of our community at the hands of law enforcement. Now, more than ever before, we have the opportunity to nourish ourselves by using the tools, which include those related to the fullness and the richness of yoga, from its wisdom and the philosophy to the ancient practices, so that we can journey within. And we'll explore some of these today. Each of us has so many decisions to make about what we introduce into our lives, how we introduce things, how we want to shape our reality, how we can be better prepared for whatever unexpected challenges come our way on our life's path. How can we nurture ourselves, our whole self, from the material body to our psychological body to our spiritual self? How can we deepen and sustain our individual resilience? But we also know that it's critical to speak about our struggles rather than staying silent and alone, so that we can reduce this stigma around mental health as well, because quite often the stigma prevents people from looking for outside help and contacting others, which in turn brings us back to having a warm and an inspiring community or a network of caring persons for us to be in contact with. So again, it's going back to how we can deepen and sustain our collective resilience. I am so privileged that Gayatri Narain, the vice chair of the International Day of Yoga Committee at the UN, is with us today. And she's been representing the Brahma Kumaris at the UN since 1980. So in addition to her astute perception about world affairs and diplomacy, she's also a sought-after Raj Yoga master, where she travels the world providing her wisdom and her insight in a clear, concise, simple, and beautiful way. So I'd like to welcome dear Gayatri.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you for that beautiful intro. And I'd like to acknowledge our dear brother Deepak and our dear sister Karuna. And thank you so much for being with us today. I was asked to do the invocation in honor of World Yoga Day. And I'd like to dedicate my invocation today to the spiritual presence of yogis and yoginis. Yogis are said to be like the male and yoginis, the female. Because I think at the very core of the soul is a yogi or a yogini seeking connection and communication with the source, seeking a communion with the source, the divine, and the higher power. So this invocation is called The Elegance of Presence, and it is dedicated to everyone, every soul whose core is wanting to be in communion, in connection, and in relation with others. So I'll invite you to relax and to be centered as I take you through a path that connects you to the core of your presence. The spiritual elegance of presence flows naturally, elegantly, seamlessly. Presence prevails in the inner environment soul conscious light, and is experienced as confidence, as poise, as sureness, presence, as a dignified disposition. It is graceful, it is polite, it is kind, it is respectful, it is considerate, and it is inclusive. Presence gives space to the dignity of freedom, because this presence rests in God's silence, a sacred sanctuary where all life is cherished and loved and respected. God's gracious love reaffirms the worth and wholeness of your person. Presence is the radiance of purity. God's beauty. It reflects God's beauty. To enter into God's presence is the quest of the human heart, through which healing, health, and harmony become apparent with tranquility and gentleness. Presence is God's light to heal. Presence is the soul's light in being healthy. Presence is Mother Nature's light in harmony. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. Namaste to the elegance of your spiritual presence.
Thank you, Gayatri, for that beautiful, elegant opening. I think that you've set the way for us to explore the deeper purpose of yoga. And I'm so delighted that we can begin with our special keynote. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't know Deepak Chopra, or at least his name. He's a modern day Renaissance man. He's a practicing medical doctor, researcher, New York Times best-selling author with more than 90 books under his belt. He's been heralded by Time magazine in 1999 as one of the top 100 heroes and icons of the 20th century. And his popularity and his energy seem to show no signs of waning. And I really don't know how he does it. But for those of you who don't know, in my humble opinion, he's really a trusted support. He's been providing solid grounding for so many, especially in light of COVID-19. How many of you know that Deepak has been meeting on Facebook daily, sometimes for over a half hour or longer? He's explained so many facets of the ancient wisdom of the Vedas, the Yoga Sutras. He's tied it into our experiences in our lives today. He's led us in meditation, all kinds of meditation, of course, meditation for healing, for depression, for gratitude, for creativity, for abundance. The list is on and on and on. And his latest collaboration is with Alicia Keys, the musician, about the divine feminine. But he's also shared mantras in Sanskrit and then explained the underlying meaning behind them in English. So I think you get the picture. Words are insufficient to express the gratitude that so many of us have to you, Deepak, for your leadership, for your selfless service, for your care and your concern for humanity. And I'm just so grateful and thankful for you joining us today.
I'm very grateful, Denise, to be with all of you right now, and very grateful to Gayatri Ji for that beautiful invocation, and all my colleagues here at the International Day of Yoga through the UN. So since we're talking about healing, I think yoga provides the ultimate healing that is the basis of every spiritual tradition, at the basis of every spiritual tradition. When you look at the different aspects of religious experience, three things stand out. First is finding your identity beyond the conditioned mind and beyond space and time as transcendent, timeless being. That's the first experience. Religious experience, every religion. The second religious experience, which spontaneously emerges, is what in the West are called Platonic values: truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, empathy, peace. And the third component of that same religious experience is the loss of the fear of death, because one has returned to the whole mind from the fragmented mind. So if you follow the 8 limbs of yoga as originally propounded by the great sage Patanjali, the first 2, of course, are the yamas and niyamas, the principles of personal and social conduct, social and personal conduct. And the first of all of those, and the most relevant of all of those, is ahimsa, which is translated usually as non-violence. Kind of a negative definition, but if you look at Patanjali's original description, it is really peace consciousness beyond the turbulence of the conditioned mind. And Patanjali says, when we are firmly established in ahimsa, then all beings cease to feel hostility. All beings, all sentient beings cease to feel hostility through what we heard earlier, Gayatri saying, the elegance of presence. Not by what you do, not by what you say, not by how you think, but just your presence creates peace. That's ahimsa. And the great sages also say that if we were to follow only one of the yamas and niyamas in the age of darkness, the age of ignorance, the veil of Maya, then it would be ahimsa, and we would be all set. So that is the message that yoga gives us, all the way back to Patanjali. But as we open the text of yoga, we also see that after the first sentence in the first chapter, the first verse, now begins the teaching of yoga. The next sentence immediately is Yog Chit Vritti Nirodh. Yoga is the quietening of the vrittis of consciousness that appear to us in the form of sensations, sense perceptions, feelings, emotions, and thoughts. This is everyday experience. All experience is just that. The experience of the mind, the experience of the body, the experience of what we call the physical world is vritti, the fluctuation of consciousness. But when these fluctuations quieten or subside, what's left is pure consciousness, which is our timeless being. And pure consciousness is beyond cause and effect, therefore beyond all karmic stories. It is timeless. It is infinite possibilities. It is also unpredictable because it's not an algorithm. And because it's unpredictable, it's infinitely creative. And it correlates pure consciousness, everything that's happening in the universe as one activity. Everything that's happening in the universe. That means all knowers, all modes of knowing, all things known are correlated. And these days, science is trying to address these unimaginable conundrums through words like quantum entanglement, qualia entanglement, meaning entanglement, the domain of acausal, non-local interrelatedness, where everything is in total harmony with everything else. So the issue comes when fragmented minds begin to compete with their karmic stories. And the issue can be easily resolved when yoga tells us, not intellectually, but experientially, that separation is not differentiation. Just like my body organs come from one cell, the stem cell or pluripotential cell, eyes, nose, immune system, stomach, heart, brain, all the organs, genitalia, hair follicles, skin come from one cell. So too, the entire universe comes from one being, but it manifests through infinite modes of knowing, infinite knowers, and infinite things known. And we are that beyond the conditioned mind. So as a medical doctor, I've been recently very impressed by some of the amazing science that is emerging in the Western world. And I could summarize it in two phrases. It's called the polyvagal theory, initially popularized through the University of Indiana scientists, but now very much a feature of mainstream understanding of healing or homeostasis or self-regulation. So the polyvagal theory simply says that while we in the West have focused on sympathetic overdrive, the cause of inflammation in the body, the cause of anxiety and fear in the mind, and ultimately all the things that go wrong in the separate mind, including guilt, shame, depression, anxiety, fear, hostility, and anger. Beyond the secret passages and the dark alleys and the ghost-filled attics of the conditioned mind is this field of wholeness, which is holy, which is sacred, and which is healed already. So the journey of the self is from the self to the self. It is a journey without distance. In the words of T.S. Eliot, who said, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of our exploring is to arrive where we started from and know the place for the first time." Immediately after the yamas and niyamas is the third aspect of yoga, which is yogasana. So most people think of yogasana as what they do when they go to a yoga studio, which it is. But asana also means the seat of awareness. So every yogasana is a particular seat of awareness that actually influences our mind to go beyond the conditioned mind to the source of all minds, including other sentient beings, cats and cows and camel, you know, those poses, happy baby and child pose and camel pose and cat cow and on. So you can see that every asana actually is a seat of awareness. And not only that, it stimulates a different part of the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve, which is known as the healing nerve in the body, which counteracts sympathetic overdrive, decreases inflammation, decreases anxiety, depression, and gets us to the source through Chit Vritti Nirodh. Yoga asana is an aspect of that. And then immediately after that, we have pranayam, and there are hundreds of pranayams telling us very exactly how to use the breath and combine it with kriya, with attention, with intention, with drishti, and with awareness to bring about healing anywhere in the body, just through the breath. And as we move from pranayam We go to interoceptive awareness, which these days is the fashionable word for how to be aware of what's happening inside your body, visceral awareness. And that is from pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses, and going inward once again, and having the ability to regulate our body organs, including viscera at the finest level, including the hollow organs of the body, the solid organs of the body, but also the various systems like endocrine system, immune system, cardiovascular system, and so on. And having prepared all this way, the 5 limbs, we come to the 3 most important limbs of yoga: dharana, focused attention; dhyan, the flow of samadhi, the flow of meditation; mantra or whatever object is being meditated upon; and the last limb, 8th limb, samadhi, transcendence, where there is holiness, wholeness, and healing, and the recognition that health is a return to the memory of wholeness. So the 8 limbs of yoga and the very precise order actually are aspects of the polyvagal theory. And when you look at different rituals in different traditions, posture, movement is part of prayer. Even, when you see the Muslim prayer, 5 prayers a day, you'll be reminded of yogasana. But every prayer has that element. Every prayer has vocalization and chanting and music, which is also the use of breath. And also every prayer uses breath, as it's called barak, or ruah, or spirit, in every tradition. And every spiritual tradition also emphasizes Platonic values. And as we look now on the physiology of these various rituals, mantra, yantra, tantra, we discover the mechanics of not only physical healing, but emotional healing, and ultimately spiritual resonance with alignment of all the elements and forces in our body-mind with the elements and forces of the universe. So there are beautiful Mahavakyas and beautiful phrases in Sanskrit which summarize all of this. Sat Chit Ananda, that our home is truth, pure awareness, and bliss. Bliss is the background of every vritti. Before the vritti, there is only bliss, and that is also a peace that passes understanding. Phrases like pursuit of happiness and peace of mind are actually oxymorons, because pursuit of happiness assumes that you're unhappy, when yoga says your fundamental state is joy and pure awareness and pure creativity. So peace of mind is an oxymoron. Peace is only beyond the mind, at the source of the mind, which is pure awareness. And similarly, the pursuit of happiness assumes that you're fundamentally unhappy, and these are inaccurate descriptions of reality. Peace, creativity, bliss, joy are who we are. We just happen to have forgotten it. And when we practice the rituals and the techniques of yoga, and all these amazing forms of yoga have still at their basis the same 8 progressive limbs of healing not only the body and not only the emotions, but returning us to the source where there is no fear of death, where we recognize ourselves as timeless beings, and pure love. Love in action, which is also called karma yoga. So love without action is irrelevant, and action without love is meaningless. When you have love in action, then the whole world will support you. And that is why today is such an important day, the International Day of Yoga Committee at the UN, because this is what this great, amazing group is about. The Brahma Kumaris and all the amazing teachers here of this great ancient science which now needs to be resurrected so that we can move to a critical mass of peace, sustainability, social and economic justice, health, and joy. So I'm very grateful to be sharing these words with you. And I wish us all, God bless, onward to our journey without distance. God bless.
Thank you so much, Deepak. I think that you, in a very elegant way, also addressed the 8 limbs of yoga, gave us a blueprint and a reminder, especially for those of us who are practicing, gave us a shot of inspiration, if I may say it that way. But also at the same time, I think that you really emphasized, and it's something that the committee does emphasize, is how yoga is the basis of every spiritual tradition. And it is the basis of the will to do good and goodwill of people around the world. And I think that that is something that is so recognized within the greater UN community when we have yoga communities doing their work to make a difference to the lives of people on the ground, be it through the different concrete projects and programs that they've been involved in. I so appreciate your book that came out, I think it was in September, Total Meditation, because it offers so much for us in terms of practical tools to really reach that sense of awareness, to go beyond our mind to that place of peace, that creative field. So thank you so much for that. And I look forward to your next book, which I think is about money. Is that right?
It's called the Yoga of Money because some people are so poor, all they have is money. They need abundance consciousness. And it's the inner path to abundance. Yes.
Well, we look forward to that. And hopefully we look forward to that book launch. If it's going to be in New York at the United Palace, we look forward to being with you again. We send you so much good wishes as you continue your work and the support of so many. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
We wish you a sincere namaste.
Namaste, and very grateful to be in this company. God bless.
Well, we friends have had a really rich sharing from Deepak today on so many levels. And I think that that is just a wonderful way now for us to pause and for us to go inward. Music, as we know, is a universal language that goes beyond words, and it cuts to our very core in ways that words can never reach. It allows us to access that deep place within, where we can touch that place of creativity, the ultimate intelligence, the supreme absolute, something that is greater than ourselves. It's my pleasure to introduce Ayako Ichimaru. She's a violin virtuoso who began playing at the age of 4 in Tokyo, Japan. She's a charismatic soloist performing all over the world, spreading her message, her original music of peace and happiness within. She's performed at many different places, special venues, including the White House in Washington, D.C., the United Nations in New York, the Great Hall of the People in Beijing, China, so many, many other places. Ayako's music leaves a deep impression, a special vibration, and with the political leaders of the world too. And it's so interesting that she's a culture ambassador of Hong Kong, where she lives, and that's really unusual for a foreigner. So her stunning and her beautiful, beautiful music can be heard in her award-winning CD called The 5 Elements. Let us listen now and turn to this special piece that Ayako composed just for us. Wasn't that gorgeous? What a beautiful piece that she shared with us. Thank you so much, Ayoko. We so appreciate you being with us and gifting us this special time. I'd like to turn now to another special guest, Ken Wilber. He's often referred to the Einstein of consciousness studies. He's a preeminent scholar of the integral stage of human development, an internationally acknowledged leader, founder of Integral Institute, and co-founder of Integral Life. He is one of the most widely read and influential American philosophers of our time. Over the last 35 years, he's developed an integral theory of everything that makes sense of how all the world systems, the East, the West, ancient and modern, postmodern, how all of that fits together and how it can elevate our consciousness. He draws from science, psychology, spirituality, religion, and other fields. His integral theory is a revolutionary framework for understanding ourselves and our place in the world that we live in. Some of you may already be familiar with his spirituality of wholeness. He and another special guest, Karuna, are engaging in conversation about this in the clip that we're so pleased to share. But first, let me give you a short taste of Karuna, because she's joining us live in a little while. Karuna is the founder of Light on Kundalini, based in Colorado in the United States. She's the host editor of Light on Light e-magazine, the media director for Light on Light Press, and on the host team for the Convergence series on Voice America. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the clip with Ken and Karunaji.
Ken, in our most recent discussions with you, and thanks for having us over.
Sure.
You often use that word wholeness, which just resonated so deeply within me, and I had to have this conversation. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Happy. And I know many others from the yoga world and the spiritual world will be very happy to hear your points of view on finding a spirituality of wholeness.
Okay.
So, like many of our authors that joined us in our latest and greatest Light on Light magazine called Change Makers in Leadership and Transformation issue, they also found this word of wholeness. So it's interesting how it's coming out. So what is a spirituality of wholeness question? And what does it look like, not only in a vision, but in a daily life and practice in your point of view?
Right. Well, one of the places that I might start is that one of the very first things about wholeness is you have to know where to look for it. It's an active search, and you do have to know where to look. So, I mean, if you consider sort of present experience as it's arising just all by itself, there's really not a lot of obvious truth in that. I mean, in our present experience, mostly what we just see is sort of colored patches. So we don't see atoms or molecules or cells arising. We don't see values or morals or purpose. And we don't see planets or super distant galaxies. So in order to know about those, we have to actually take certain actions to find truth. And it's always in the form, if you want to know this, do this.
Right.
So a comprehensive or integral or truly whole spirituality has several types of truth, several types of wholeness. But to find those, you have to know where to look, and you have to take some specific actions or practices or exercises. So what are some of the things you have to do? Well, you sometimes summarize these actions by saying that we need to engage in waking up, in growing up, opening up, cleaning up, and showing up.
Right.
Now, some people include things like linking up and lifting up and so on, but these are 5 of the really important engagements,
Right.
each of which involves a different type of wholeness. And so, and the problem is none of those wholenesses will tell us anything about the other types of wholeness. And that's where it gets tricky. And that's why we don't always have as holistic, in the best sense of the term, approaches as we could, because we're not covering all of these different types of wholeness that are available. We generally will get to sort of one kind of wholeness and think that's the only wholeness there is. I mean, it's whole, so that's it, right? Not exactly. So, for example, in terms of waking up, most people are familiar with the general idea of waking up. Certainly, people interested in spirituality and might be listening to us talk right now.
Right.
This waking up is the standard sort of core spiritual realization known around the world as enlightenment, awakening, moksha, metamorphosis, spana, satori, and so on. It's often described as an awakening to and a direct experience of an ultimate ground of all being. There are lots of other names for it, but that's a fairly sort of generic term.
Ultimate
And this
ground
is the-
of all being, Ken? Ultimate ground of all being. Can you, what do you mean?
That's just the name of the ultimate reality. It's the ground of all being. It was a term Plotinus used and then picked up by Paul Tillich. And it's got a fairly wide cachet around the world. And again, it's also just sort of a generic term. It's not calling it Brahman or Buddha nature or Tao or Christ consciousness or anything like that. All of those are versions of a ground of all being. It's the reality, the thusness, suchness of everything that exists. And that's what enlightenment or awakening is waking up to that ultimate, all-embracing ground of being or ultimate truth or ultimate reality.
Right.
And this is, in a sense, it's a profound wholeness or unity or non-duality of infinite and finite, emptiness and form, unmanifest and manifest, nirvana and samsara, ultimate and relative. It's just the ground of absolutely everything that could possibly exist. And it's often experienced in what's called ultimate unity consciousness or divine oneness or all-inclusive awareness. Tibetans call it one taste. Basically, you let go of your separate self sense or isolated ego and instead find yourself sort of one with the entire universe, one with everything, as it said. And this is a stunning wholeness. And it's also a very central core aim of most sophisticated religions the world over.
Mm-hmm.
But as whole as this waking up is, notice what it won't show you.
Great.
Notice the types of wholeness you won't see with waking up. Now, these, let me preface this by saying these types of waking up or satori realizations are several thousand years old, at least. So say 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, you were practicing meditation or contemplation or yogic practices. And by the way, these are the actions you have to take if you want to know this ground of being. If you want to wake up, you must do some things. And these are spiritual practices, some of the most sophisticated of which are meditation, contemplation, yoga, centering prayer. And so let's say you're practicing meditation and you're walking through the woods and you see the sun going overhead and you can feel the earth below you and you can see wood, you can see trees all around you. And all of a sudden, pow, you have a satori. So now when you have that, you're no longer separate from all those things. You're one with the sun.
The Satori is the awakening.
Yeah, you're one with the earth. You're one with the woods and everything. And basically, you're one with everything. That's
Okay,
sort of a bad joke about the Dalai Lama. You know, what did the Dalai Lama say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything. Horrible.
Great,
joke.
lovely.
Right.
Well, that's perfect.
It is, and that's wholeness. That's a big wholeness. But notice, you're out, you're doing that, you're walking through the woods 3,000-4,000 years ago. So you're one with the sun, you're one with the earth, but you still think the sun circles the earth.
Yeah.
And you still think the earth is flat.
Right.
And when you look at all the trees in the woods, you won't see the atoms or molecules or cells that comprise these trees.
Right.
So there are important types of truth that this ultimate realization will not show you. And that means there are types of wholeness you won't see with waking up. Among other things, you won't see, just as only one example, the wholeness of the solar system. And that you'd be able to understand there are close to a dozen spherical planets all circling the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So as we'll see as we continue to go through this, waking up will not show you the wholeness that you will find in growing up or opening up or cleaning up or showing up. It won't show you any of that, just like it won't show you the earth isn't flat.
Mm-hmm.
But it is showing you this ultimate ground of being. So that waking up is crucial. It's a central, crucial component. Most spiritual traditions, for example, distinguish what they call the two truths doctrine. There are at least two major truths. There's an ultimate truth, and then there's relative truth.
Mm-hmm.
So relative truth is, for example, scientific truths. So water is H2O. Water is made of two hydrogen atoms, one oxygen atom. That's a relative truth. And the traditions don't deny that. I mean, there's that. It's just they don't necessarily have access to a whole lot of those kinds of truths.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimate truth is just what we were saying. It's ultimate. It's a ground of all being. So it's all encompassing, all embracing, all inclusive. Now, of all these types of truth and wholeness, waking up, growing up, showing up, and so on, waking up is the only one that claims to offer ultimate truth.
Okay.
So that's an extremely important wholeness. It's absolutely central. But again, the point is, it won't show us all the kinds of wholeness that are out there.
Right.
And particularly since the great non-dual spiritual revolution, East and West,
Mm-hmm.
ultimate truth and relative truth are said to be not two or non-dual.
Mm-hmm.
So as the Heart Sutra famously put it, that which is emptiness is not other than form. That which is form is not other than emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't just dismiss the relative realm or the finite realm or the realm of samsara. All of them are composed of just relative truths, but we can't dismiss those realms. They're all perfect manifestations of a non-dual ultimate reality or ground of being.
Well, that's fantastic, because that leads me to ask you the importance of, if you find it incredibly important to do yogic practice and physical practice, because we're finite, right? And that could take us to the ultimate grounding, couldn't it? To the infinite grounding once we, work through all that finite density in ourselves.
That's exactly right. And that's the sort of, it's a really profound type of wholeness.
Mhm.
And so much so that it is referred to as awakening or waking up. It's,
Mhm.
and that term is often specifically used because it really is just like waking up from a dream. It's almost universally said that without that waking up experience, we're living in essentially a kind of dream state.
Mhm.
Again, because we don't know this ultimate truth, this ultimate reality. So we're just living in a relative world. And when that relative world is seen apart from that ultimate world,
Mhm.
then it's nothing but an illusion. It's nothing but a dream. But when that relative world is seen as an expression of that ultimate spirit or ultimate realm, then it becomes just that. It's a manifestation. It's an outflow. It's a superabundance of spirit. It's not illusory anymore. It's a
That's-
manifestation of
Yeah.
spirit.
That's great because I'm picturing people going to the forest for the first time and looking at the sun for the first time after being in a cave or something
Right.
all their lives and only living through the shadow, right? And I'm
Right.
thinking about, oh my God, they're going to run back into the cave because it's such a fear zone to see something they're not used to. And that's kind of what we do when we wake up, isn't it? We go into that place of like, who am I going to tell?
Right.
Who am I going to lean into? How do I figure this out? Where do I go now?
Exactly. Now, it's just that as important as that ultimate ground of being is, because it's the same identical ground found in every single thing and event in the entire universe, then waking up to that ground won't tell you anything specific about any particular thing. Because it's the same ground in everything. So it won't tell you anything specific about any individual thing.
But isn't our human nature to expect it to?
Well, many
Tell us.
people for
Something's gotta tell
thousands
us.
of years felt that all you needed was to wake up and everything would be solved.
Right.
And that's just not true. Evolution in the relative realm continues to unfold. It brings new types of wholeness, new types of truth.
Right.
So we're still, the only way to get access to that ultimate truth or ultimate ground is to have a waking up, an enlightenment, an awakening experience. But then that's overflowing into this manifest finite realm, and just awakening to that ground won't tell you that much about all the individual specific things that are there. So that's why none of the great awakening traditions knew anything about quarks or atoms or molecules or cells, even though they're one with the ground of all of that. But because that ground is the same everywhere, it won't tell you anything specific.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just look at this. Oh, these are atoms over here. Okay, and then these are cells over here. Okay, that's got that. So there are different types of wholeness in the relative realm. And that's why we need to add types of wholeness we find in the relative realm. And so, I mean, we saw that a genuine waking up won't even tell you the earth isn't flat.
Right.
So clearly we want to include some of these relative truths. So to find truth and wholeness in the relative realm,
Yes.
we need to engage in methods and practices that will show us important relative truths. And these include the truths of growing up and opening up and cleaning up and showing up.
Yeah.
Each of those areas has a different type of wholeness, and not one of those types of wholeness will tell you anything about the other types of wholeness. And that's one of the main things that we're getting across here. We're talking about basically 5 or so examples of different types of wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of them will just tell you about itself. It won't tell you about any of the other types of wholeness, just like waking up won't tell you anything about these either. So each of these areas has a different type of wholeness, and you have to approach each of them on their own, just like you still have to approach waking up on its own. You can't substitute one of these for the other. So if you want a truly comprehensive wholeness or a full spirituality, you need to include actions and practices that address all of them: waking up and growing up and opening up and cleaning up and showing up. But this means that in our daily lives, we
Right.
will have the real chance to be fully, deeply, and truly whole.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a separate wholeness that comes from addressing just one of these areas, but a truly big wholeness, so to speak, that includes all of them. And now, no doubt, as history and evolution itself and the finite relative realm continue to unfold, then more types of relative wholeness will emerge.
Right,
But
right.
in today's world, right now,
Mhm.
these areas of wholeness are about as big a big wholeness as we can find. And of course, whenever we find any other areas that are important, then one of the first things we say is fine, let's have those.
Mhm.
And this does mean that there's a chance for a genuine spirituality, which will finally be able to permeate all areas of our lives, bringing a real heaven on earth in that sense. So it's an exciting time to be alive.
Well, it's exciting to learn more about the spirituality of wholeness, that's for sure. And I want to thank you, Ken and Karuna, for addressing the topic of yoga also, and how the core realization of awakening underlies all styles and all forms of yoga, as well as spiritual traditions. Though people may call that ultimate reality, that truth, by different names. I'd like to welcome those of you who are just joining us now as we celebrate World Yoga Day. I'd like to recognize Dr. Kurt Johnson. He's with us today. German Bravo, our good friend Giovanni Farah Nazarelli, among others. Now we're going to offer another way to experience the ultimate ground of being through the Adi Shakti mantra. Our version today is by Orkan Basturk. He's a yoga practitioner who's also an award-winning musician originally from Istanbul in Turkey. He founded and played with so many independent avant-garde groups such as Replikas, Kerika, and Konju, but he's played in concerts and festivals all over the world, hosted radio programs, and composed film scores too. He's a filmmaker, and his shorts have been shown in Turkey as well as in Europe. Lately, though, he carries on his music as part of SO Duo, and he's a soloist. But let's get back to the Adi Shakti mantra. It's also called the Adi Parashakti mantra, which means literally the primordial, the first power. This is a profound mantra which attracts infinite divine power and energy. When meditating with this mantra, our intention is to attune and merge with the powerful, vast divine energy and merge with that infinite source of all of us. Feminine in its aspect, it calls upon the energy of our divine mother power, and its Mahashakti chant really expresses devotion to the mother of all energies, both known and unknown. It's the embodiment of creativity, of balance, of completion. I'd like to share the word mantra. It literally means tool for the mind. It was designed to help practitioners access a higher power and their true nature. It's a sound vibration which intentionally focuses our thoughts, our feelings. So let us now be open. Let us be open to the power of the sacred formula, to the vibration of this powerful mantra, Adi Shakti.
Bhagavate Pratam Bhagavate Namo Namo Kundalini Mata Shakti Namo Namo. Hare Shakti, Hare Shakti, Hare Shakti, Namo Namo. Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Sarva Shakti, Namo Namo. Pratam Bhagavati, Pratam Bhagavati, Pratam Bhagavati, Namo Namo. Kundalini Mata Shakti, Mata Shakti, Namo Namo. Namo Namo.
How is that for you? The Adi Shakti mantra. Do you feel more inspired? I know I do, and I'd like to offer even more inspiration. I'm delighted to share with you how the International Day of Yoga Committee at the United Nations has been honored to publish a special Yoga Day edition of Light on Light e-magazine. 2021 is our 4th special edition, and I'm just going to hold up the copy from 2 years ago. I just chose this randomly so that you could take a look and you could see it. So we do have a printed copy that some people have. Usually we have it live for Yoga Day and it's already published, but this year we're trying an experiment. We thought that we'd try publishing it later after Yoga Day so that we can include our Yoga Day special events from this time in the 2021 issue. With us now are a few of our 2021 contributors, and they're here to give a preview of their submissions. They're all core members of the committee, and they've been with us for many other celebrations. So I'd like to first start with Acharya Sandra Chamatkara Simon. She's the first Acharya ordained in the Sacred Feet Yoga tradition, as well as the first certified teacher of Sacred Feet Hatha Yoga. Acharya Chamatkara is the managing editor of the Sacred Feet publishing imprint. She taught herself how to make a book for the purposes of publishing Swami Shraddhananda's Jesus Was a Shaktiput Guru and subsequent interspiritual works. And for those of you who don't know, Swami Shraddhananda is the founder of Sacred Feet Yoga. And although she passed out of her body, she remains very close to us. Over to you, Acharya Chamatkara.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you very much for having us today. Light on Light magazine, and Denise, was very gracious in reaching out to us upon the transition of Swami Shraddhananda. So in this upcoming edition, we were able to feature Swami Shraddhananda and honor her and her legacy. As Denise mentioned, she transitioned earlier this year. And we are very grateful, myself and my co-Dharma heirs, Jenny Williams and Swami Prakashananda, who resides in England. For my piece, just quickly in the magazine, I've been getting a lot of questions over the past year asking me what to do until things go back to normal, or when are things going back to normal? How do I find peace in the things that I'm facing through COVID? And I have to look at the same advice that I would give myself upon the transition of my mentor and Swami Shraddhananda passing. It is why we have yoga. We do the practices to get us internally to that center of divinity that has been spoken about today, the place of peace and love and balance and all of those things that we have been seeking. I would offer that we don't have to sit here and white knuckle it until the next time that life calms down. And as with any other relationship, you know, if you can think of someone in your life whom you love, your mother, a friend, the more effort you put into that relationship, even though you know that person is always with you on the other side, when you call that person, when you go in the car and you knock on the door and you visit them and you connect in those ways, the energy is more palpable by you taking participation instead of waiting for life to act upon you. Yoga gives us the tools whereby we can make our own relationship with that divinity. We meditate and we increase that relationship with God, with the divine. We don't have to wait for God to come knocking, although the divine will always operate within us and without us, regardless of what we do or we do not do. Knocking on that door, and through meditation, through the asanas, through self-inquiry, exploring the sacred texts, all of those things that bring us into communion with the divine inside really help to get us into that place that we're not seeking that peace externally. As Deepak said, it is in consciousness, it is inside us. It's not something we have to go seek, we just have to remember it's there. And the other main point is that we are not alone, siloed off in our suffering. I think sometimes emotions might make us feel like we are, but we are not, because Hamsa, we are divinity. And once we, just like as if you get to your mother's house and your cousins and your neighbors and everyone are there and all these loved people, when you knock on that door and you meditate into the sacred, you are all there, right alongside us. We are not alone, we are all together. And so mainly I've been offering that sort of advice of what yoga exactly is for. You know, Chamatkara, I can't sleep, I can't. Yoga only helps connect us into that center of divinity that helps us do those things. So I very much appreciate you giving us the opportunity to speak about that and the practice bringing us to peace. And I very much thank all of you for being here today as I knock on the door. My community, nationally, regionally, internationally, you have been there for Sacred Feet Yoga, and we certainly appreciate it, especially at this time of transition for us.
Thank you so much. It's a joy for us to have you with us and to offer support, because that's what we're about. We are about community. We're about being there for one another. We're about for each other having solace, having comfort, to share the joys, to share the sorrows. So it's our pleasure, and I'm so glad that you said yes to this invitation. Another good friend is Alfredo Severe Yunes, Zambling Cho Tab Ken. He is a Chilean economist with a PhD in natural resource economics, but he's a spiritual leader who understands about spirituality really at the heart of everything, that it should be in the public domain. So what does that mean? Sustainable development, human rights, politics, economics, citizenship. He is someone who has been representing the World Peace Foundation for the Lama Ganchen NGO that's accredited to the UN. And he brings this to everything that he's been doing in terms of the work that he's involved in when we talk about this idea of the public domain and the public goods and those spaces. So joining us from Chile, I give such a warm welcome to you, Zambling Cho Tab Ken.
Thank you, Denise. I'm so happy to be here. To celebrate a Yoga Day is to celebrate the miracle of diversity in union. This is not a slogan. This is so fundamental. We are very diverse as a community of life, but we have one planet and one collective destiny. Today, we are human planetary collective. Yes, When we talk about this International Day of Yoga, it has to be the planetary yoga. That is the direction we have to go. It must be our shared responsibility and our sacred commitment to construct the best future we are able to. The yoga of our common collective destiny requires some universal principles we together are ready to embrace. But what principles would a yoga community like ours be willing to propose so that all people on this planet can share and self-realize union, peace, love, compassion, solidarity, justice, or inclusion? We must compose a new inner and outer narrative as a human race, from war to peace, from disease to health, from exclusion to equanimity, from competition to compassion, from outer to the inner. In this next issue of Light on Light, I address 10 universal principles that anchor human transformation into the foundation of our spiritual being and becoming. And I would like to have the opportunity here, very briefly, to address them so that we can share a preview of what those principles are. The first, the life within collective unity consciousness, oneness with all sentient beings and nature, where the calculus of consent must change now. Two, the power of citizenry and the material and spiritual content of living as community in a true planetary democracy. The third principle, the richness of love and compassion to become the other without losing our own identity and experience the attributes of values like respect, solidarity, sharing, interdependence, peace. Fourth, the essence and effectiveness of our inner evolution to balance and harmonize our outer and inner ecology, the ecology of the self. The fifth principle is the transformational nature of a new eco-morality and planetary integrity, the morality of togetherness and mutual interdependence. The sixth is the healing of the planet for world everlasting peace, to restore the ecology of nature. Yes, healing the planet also means healing ourselves. The seventh, the power of changing economics, social, politics, and business, based on two fundamental values: conscious transformation and total care. The eighth is the foundation of conscious planetary leadership, creating planetary beings, and self-realized leaders whose mission is to empower and the self-realization of others. The ninth is the establishment of a new planetary institution. I'm suggesting that really is urgent to create a planetary citizens organization. And the last principle is the need for a new form of multilateralism, going beyond nation states and including citizens, communities, and civil society organizations like ours. My blessings to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those words of wisdom and for really understanding what we are trying to do within the greater UN community to support the UN as a global institution, both in its work, but also in its place in terms of the spiritual upliftment and evolution of our human family. You've been critical to this dialogue for decades now, and we're so grateful that you're such a strong collaborator and you're ready and able and willing every time we ask of you. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining from Chile.
Thank you.
Our next contributor is Dr. Padmini Murthy, and she is a member of our International Day of Yoga Committee Executive Board. She's a practicing medical doctor, a public health expert. She's been involved with the special event with Dr. Fauci dealing with COVID-19. She's a professor and global health director at New York Medical College, and I know Dr. Murthy for many years as a close colleague in our mutual work at the United Nations. She's been representing the American Medical Women's Association, initiated projects on safe motherhood, but she's spearheaded so much humanitarian aid to various countries in light of COVID-19. And we're so proud of her for doing that. She's also significantly a yoga practitioner and a prolific poet. Let's welcome Dr. Murthy.
Thank you so much, Denise. Thank you, everybody. It's really an honor to be here. And also, Denise, you're a partner in crime to so many of us to do the good things we've all been doing. And Paul, you know, I love your music, fellow Capricornian. It was amazing. So what did I write for this? Before I just read my poem, my article, when Denise reached out to me, I said, we need to really talk about stress and COVID because we've all been so stressed out. And so my article talks about how yoga has really been helping all of us and how it can help so many people with stress instead of, you know, lighting up a cigarette or even a lot of people have, unfortunately, there have been increased incidents of substance abuse. So one of the things is like, and as Denise, you said that early on, and Dr. Chopra was speaking so eloquently, yoga is not just belonging to one religion, it's universal. And it's the bond which is connecting all of us to improve our health, well-being, the planet, and also the SDGs. So that being said, it's so important, even if you can do yoga for 15 minutes a day, whether, you know, the asanas, the pranayama, it really changes your way of thinking, way of life. I guess you get more tolerant and just say that, okay, let it go. Whatever goes around comes around, or, you know, it'll just pass. So thank you, Denise. And just to wrap up, I just wanted to read my poem, which is also going to be in the book. I gave you a very brief snapshot of the article I wrote, but this is the poem I have written about yoga. Exhale the negativity, inhale the positivity. Yoga is a way of life, helping to end strife, supporting universal well-being, and making us willing in spreading compassion by joining yoga's great mission. So at the Yoga Day Committee, this is what we do. We are bringing everybody together. And what is our mission? To spread peace, tranquility, and well-being, because health is a complete state of social, physical, and mental well-being. Thank you so much, Denise. Back to you.
Thank you for that reminder about how health is just so inclusive, and it is not about a physical state. It's always good to hear that from medical practitioners like yourself and Dr. Chopra. We're so grateful that you've been involved with us in so much of the work that you've been doing, especially, again, a big shout out to the COVID-19 relief and humanitarian efforts. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Murthy raised over $20,000 for India alone, and that was just on one small project. So kudos to you, dear friend and colleague, because you are really making a difference in so many people's lives in that way, in the special way that you can using your medical background. So again, our 2021 special edition just gave you a little bit of taste of what's to come. We do have our usual yoga masters who are well known, like Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, Sadhguru, Her Holiness Yogmata from Japan. But I think that the feedback that we've received comes from the articles that people like Alfredo and Minnie and Sandra have written, because it comes really from the everyday understanding of what yoga is and the challenges that people face in their everyday lives, you know, and this has just been, I think, something that's been useful to so many people. So we're grateful for this opportunity, and I'm also grateful for my training as a trial lawyer. I don't write that in this particular issue. I wrote about Sri Aurobindo and the mother and some other things, but I bring up my trial lawyer training because people would say, I was trained for like maybe 5 days, right? Working in the city and working for a government agency in the public sector, you know, you just dive right in, you sink or swim. But, you know, the the experienced attorneys would say to always start on a high note and to end on a high note. That was like super important. So I say that because that's what we're actually doing today. We're bookending this program on two high notes, really. And, you know, we started off and now it seems like we're ending with none other than Karuna, who is finally joining us on a high note. So that is everything I've mentioned before. I'm going to now just supplement to let you know a little bit more about her. She's a dedicated mother, a teacher. She's been an actress, a radio host, but she really brings her own compassion, this sense of joy and love to yoga. She's pioneered bringing Kundalini yoga teacher training programs and that lineage to the Colorado area. And she offers daily in-person, but also online classes. She's been certified in children's yoga, prenatal yoga. She leads retreats in Costa Rica and yoga festivals in Europe. And her first book on yoga and awakening will be available, and I'm sure people are really looking forward to it. I know I am, later this year. So true to her name, Karuna, which means compassion, I introduce this beautiful soul and hope that you feel the way her heart flows easily outward, warming all of us. Welcome, dear Karuna ji.
Oh, sweetness. How do you do this? This gang of hearts here is just overwhelming. I could feel it in everybody's share today. And you know, you just open your mouth and what do you communicate? Well, you only communicate love, no? I mean, is that so difficult? Well, it is sometimes when you're in pain. And we call it the pain, we call it the pay-in, you know, in Kundalini, it's the P-A-Y-I-N, okay? Because the pain gets you to that place of like, oh, broken heart, right? Oh, what to do? Call out your tribe. We have each other. Call in your community. Call in the one that is so available to serve you. And as a matter of fact, have been wanting to serve you forever, but you just didn't give them a chance. So be courageous, step into that place of service, and let's play this extremely important time of opportunity so incredibly well that we shock ourselves. We wake up. Gayatri and I were speaking about what's the first thing in the morning that we think and we do, and before you all came on, and it's like God and me and God are one, right? And let us go into our sadhana practice and let us line up our demons like the Dalai Lama does on his walking machine at 4:30 in the morning. Can you just picture him striding through and talking to all his demons and saying, what's up now? What's next? What do you want from me? Right? And then at least as we worked on the 81 facets of the mind, we tapped into every aspect, every projection of this mind that is so incredibly important and loved. Complicated because we've gone into those serious conversations of how to change our mind, right? And how to impose outward ideas. We're all speaking about the outward. I want to take us inward. I want you to hold your right hand out. I want you all to sit up really straight. And as at this moment of time and space, we're together. Take your left hand and take your left hand out and put your right hand in this fist, okay? And I want you to squeeze you into you with a very long, deep breath. This is not an effort. This is just you feeling you. It's called the essence. It's called the rasa, R-A-S-A. Close your eyes down and breathe long and deep and feel the essence of this sacred time we're in together. And feel this amazing moment. And breathe long
before him, his voice softened as he spoke. The time has come for that journey. Feel the longing of my soul. Place this crown of light upon you. Spread the name of the Lord and carry the song of Nanak across the land and sea, spreading the love of Nanak, his words of praise unto thee.
Hold the position. Relationships and mind and brain aren't different domains of reality. They are the same domain of reality. They are each about energy. Feel as you squeeze your fist and you welcome the left divine side of your offering. Feel as this information flows. The mechanism is the brain. Subjective impressions and consciousness are mind. The regulation of your energy, feel. And information flow in the function of the mind as an emergent process emanating from both relationships, the feminine and the masculine. The regulation of energy and information emanate from both relationships and brain. Breathe. Relationships are the way we share this flow. In this view, the emergent process we are calling mind, quote, it located in the body, this nervous system, and in our relationships. Breathe. Feel from the navel point up, looking inward. Feel, hold this body mudra, this rasa. It is invoking this meditative state. Stay with it, don't go anywhere. Interpersonal relationships that are attuned promote the growth and integrative fibers in the brain. It is these regulatory fibers that enable the embodied brain to function well and for the mind to have a deep sense of coherence and well-being. Isn't that what we want? Such a state also creates the possibility of a sense of being connected to a larger world. The natural outcome of integration is compassion. It is compassion. We have spoke so much today about the light, about these articles we shared, about the definition of the different types of yoga, this activation, this regulation, this integration of different types of yoga. Stay in the posture, keep your eyes inward. Feel the energy as it flows, including but not limited visual. Feel the visual, creative visualizations of yoga. Feel the verbal. Hear the mantra, hear the Shabad, the sacred words, the music, the kirtan, the Adi Shakti, the offering. From out of nowhere comes this music that bursts your heart into the sound current and the flow as the river meets the ocean. And then the hatha, the dance, the interpersonal, the karma yoga, the way to serve. Keep holding that position. The intrapersonal, witnessing, meditation. I have thoughts, but I am not my thoughts. Naturalistic nature walks us. How Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how do we walk on the breast of the mother, day in and day out, in this taking, in this constant taking. We need the sound current. We need the Shabad. We need you. Take a very deep inhale and squeeze and feel the hint in the mastery of this practice of rasa, this meditative state, and feel the body and the energy when you invoke this amazing, most temporary state. Yes, but it also goes without any effort throughout your day. You start this way, you end this way, you wake up and you're brand new every single day. It is such a great honor to be with you today. Please know there is a time and there is a space for us now to embrace the age of Aquarius. Light on Light magazine wants your voice. Light on Light magazine wants all of your cells, meridians, and nadis to take place with us. Denise Skoda, you have hit the ball out of the ballpark today with the most beautiful people. And aren't we just so privileged to speak the same language? And is it not that we invite each other in and share? Yeah, we have to be courageous because, hey, everyone's got spirit. Every single person has breath and spirit and love. We just have to scoot the ego. Say, so the ego's a thumb, right? So give the thumb something to do. Give it some mudra. Give it something to do, Give it something to do, and it'll take care of you. I love you so much, all of you. This is such an amazing time in our lives to be together. May this yoga, this yoke, provoke, confront, elevate you into, as you all wrote in the chats, the positive. Mind is the solar plexus. We work as Dr. Deepak Chopra explained in the very beginning what yoga does. We are there and we are now, and it takes baby steps sometimes to get there, but who's in a rush, right? We're not going anywhere, and it's all about you and the sensory being. Sat Nam, may the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on, guide your way on, guide your way on. Satnam.
Satnam Karunaji, what a beautiful way for you to bring your segment to a close with that. But I really appreciate the way that you've reminded us that every day is a new day, right? That every minute is a new minute and a new opportunity for us. And hopefully people have been able to, through your rasa practice, found another way to yet connect to oneself and to that divinity or that absolute beingness that is greater than myself and each and every one of you. And to our beautiful planet that is that life force that creates every single thing and every single one everywhere, that Mahashakti, so to speak. So again, so much gratitude to you for joining us and for sharing your special practice. So friends, our time together is almost ended. And at this point, I'd like to extend my sincere appreciation to the BKs, the Brahma Kumaras, for hosting this meeting on their platform today, for the technical assistance and the wizardry of those people who are behind the scenes. There are so many people helping, and I have deep appreciation to them for making this meeting really happen in such a seamless and flawless way. Without them, we're not able to be together. So great appreciation to you. Gratitude to you, dear Gayatri, for being a wonderful partner as we're involved with promoting the underlying spiritual values of yoga, the underlying philosophy, the yogic practices within the UN and the greater UN community, for the beautiful, elegant invocation that set a wonderful tone for us. Thank you to all our speakers, from the keynote, Dr. Deepak Chopra, to Ken Wilber, to our Light on Light contributors, of course, Karuna, but our musicians for bringing their creative talents, their special vibrations, which lifts us up. To Paul Luftenegger, always our good friend, and thank you for joining us again today. To Ayoko, and to Orkan Basturk with the Adi Shakti mantra. Endless gratitude to each and every one of you, those of you who joined us and stayed the course with us at this extraordinary gathering, part of World Unity Week. You can again be with us. You check out our 2021 special edition of Light on Light e-magazine. If you look at the back page, the inside back cover, you'll be able to see a listing of all the yoga related programs around Yoga Day. It'll be there. If you go to Light on Light on Karuna's Kundalini Yoga website, if you take a look at the media page, everything is there. But go to our Facebook page. We'll be posting all the video clips, the video from today's program, this one, and the invitations for you to join other events, from our committee members to our partners. Tomorrow, join Yoga in Daily Life. Monday, join the UN Greater Community. Tuesday, join Karuna and Light on Light e-magazine. There's so much going on now, and we wish you a wonderful yoga week. We wish you the opportunity to embody these values as we and you take the next step forward. So on this 7th annual Yoga Day, I wish you all peace, and I ask that may peace be with you, may peace be with each and every one of you, may peace prevail on earth. And now let us unmute so that we can all wish each other a happy Yoga Day and greetings of peace. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Shanti.
Here we go.
Om
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Hi, Guru.
Om Shanti, Denise.
Blessings.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
No, thank you. Thank everyone. It's great for us
Thank
to
you.
be
Thank
together.
you.
Yes, thank you all.
The thunder just hit hard.
Karuna.
Oh, blessings. So happy. You, everyone, the thunder just hit so hard you can't believe it. God's with us.